Good evening and welcome to Our Natural Rights here on alltalkradio.net. Our guest this evening is allegedly Dave, and for those of you who follow our legal and lawful conversations, you will comprehend why. Dave is not a doctor, nor is he an expert in anything. He isn't even a particularly bright bloke, according to him. But he has been fortunate enough to have had many extraordinary experiences that have led him from being an obese, 20-stone, hypertensive, asthmatic, slowly winding down into old age and infirmity, to a younger, fitter version in the best health of his entire life and sporting a size 30 jeans. He is no longer at the mercy and the whims of the inhumane medical establishment. After 8 years of intensive research, speaking with so-called miracle cases, and performing many experiments upon himself, he is now ready to share what he has learned with his brothers and sisters on Earth. Welcome, Dave. It's going to be a fun show.
Oh, hi there, and I hope so.
I'm really looking forward to it. So I really appreciate your capacity to be such a thorough researcher, because not only have you done a tremendous amount of research in the areas that we'll be talking about tonight, but in so many other areas, and I find it almost flabbergasting that you can have such an exhaustive resource at your fingertips that you have. I came across a couple videos that you did after I already found out that you were going to be on the show, and I'm just going, yay, he's on that with me too, you know. So I'm real excited, and I'd like you, if you wouldn't mind, just to kind of tell us a little bit about what launched you, beyond what I've already said, what launched you into the field of trying to figure out what really makes our bodies tick.
All right. Well, as I said, I was kind of in trouble about I guess it was about 2010. I was in dead trouble. I was nearly 20 stone, which I don't know what that is in pounds. I guess it's coming up to 300 pounds.
Okay.
I suffered with chronic asthma for most of my life. My lungs were the age of a 70-year-old, apparently, according to my last fire department medical. I had a bad back, I had a bad shoulder, I had nerve damage in my foot, and pain up the calf from an Achilles tendon operation. I had a long list of things that was wrong with me. And I'd kind of thought that, actually, I'm not in too bad health, actually, because you accept all these things about you and you call them, you say, well, they're just part of me, and they kind of fade into the background.
Uh-huh.
So I thought I was in pretty good health. And then I read a book called World Without Cancer by G. Edward Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, that just destroyed my preconceptions of the medical establishment, and basically sort of blew the lid off the whole cancer scam.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I decided to see if I could do something naturally about sort of healing myself.
Okay.
As the medical establishment had utterly failed to do so. So I tried various different things, and essentially hit upon 3 or 4 methodologies and therapies, and that basically approached how the human body worked in a completely different way. Well, a completely different way than that I'd been used to. So that's where I sort of basically ended up writing a book about it, and now I travel around helping people for nothing, sharing this information, because I think it really needs to be shared.
Well, I'm putting up your book right now so people can take a look at it. I have read this probably 3 to 4 times now, and every time I read it, I find something new, some amazing pearls that I might have missed the last time. So I do highly recommend that, and I'll let you give a pitch to where people can pick that up at the end of the show. So you and I both agree that that which passes for medicine within the medical establishment is woefully inadequate, and my premise is that it was created specifically to create the illness and dependence upon big pharma and the other interventions, I don't think there was ever any intention of healing, particularly when we
Ah,
recognize that in this country at least, that Rothschild, stuck his dirty little nose into a fledgling allopathic community and decided to sink billions into it so that he could, make more money than he was currently making on big pharmaceutical or big petrochemicals. So my premise is that it was never created to heal. It was created to subvert and depress and suppress the things that people had learned and known for centuries about how their bodies actually work and what they're
hmm
supposed to do to heal themselves. So
yeah.
there's no disagreement between us there. Um,
No, I I think allopathic medicine has its place for trauma
for
care.
trauma,
You know,
yes.
yeah, if you break a leg or you get knocked down by a bus or something,
Hmm.
yeah, and you're bleeding, yes, allopathic medicine, great. It will set bones, it will stop the bleeding, that sort of thing. But as soon as it delves into the realm of trying to heal these so-called diseases, that's where the problem is.
Sure.
And you're quite right. Back in 1910, I believe it was. Um, there was all sorts of different types of medicine. There was, along with the allopathic, there was chiropractic, there was herbalist, there was naturopathic, there was all sorts of different, types of medicine
Hmm.
that I guess they kind of specialised and maybe overlapped somewhat.
Hmm.
But as you say, it was the Rockefellers and Carnegie who uh, uh, who were basically agents of the Rothschilds,
Hmm.
uh, who massively funded only allopathic medicine
Yep.
because allopathic medicine um, treats symptoms with petrochemicals.
Yep.
The fledgling petrochemical industry, which came from obviously the oil industry, which Standard Oil had already cornered the market on. So they were
Exactly.
looking to corner the market with oil derivatives.
Hmm.
So so yes, it's only that it's only the fact that they poured masses of money into allopathic medicine that it's the preeminent medicine of today. It's
Exactly.
nothing to do with the fact that it's any better than anything else. It's just been funded.
Sure. Let's just kind of start here with the conversation about how our bodies are basically projections of what we believe them to be. I think that's really, really important. And I'd like to focus tonight on things that we can do outside of the allopathic community, particularly as we're looking at the troubles in the world continuing to mount and imminent stock market crashes and store shelves going empty and all this crazy things that we know are coming. So I want people to be aware of the power that they have outside of something they might have to go purchase or someone they might have to hire to heal them. So the projection of the mind as it relates to the body, I think, is extremely powerful, and we can segue into um, the other methodologies that you've discovered and that are certainly applicable to us right now. So,
Sure. Well, the first thing to realize is that under ideal conditions, the human body is absolutely perfect. It doesn't actually require anything external to keep it going, and literally, if left to its own devices, it will heal itself of absolutely everything. In fact, it is the only thing that will heal the human body. It's the human body itself.
yep,
No amount of pills or potions and creams or laying on of hands or anything. It's literally the human body that heals itself. That's it. And as far as healing itself, if you realize that the body is never more than 7 years old, that it's completely renewed. Every single cell, pretty much, is completely renewed every 7 years. Then the idea of having any kind of long-term illness really is kind of ridiculous when you really think about it. Um,
absolutely.
And so one of the things I realized, I did a talk called Telepathy in the Complete Human, where I basically showed that essentially the way your body is projected on the outside is essentially a reflection of your internal state.
Right.
And in fact, all illnesses, every single illness you can think of, starts off as a thought pattern.
Right.
So that thought pattern causes an emotional response. And what emotions actually are a chemical signature in your body, a signature of different types of hormones and enzymes and other substances that prepare your body for the consequences of the emotion. So if you've got fear, for instance, then this specific mix of hormones and other substances will, for instance, draw all the blood from your center out to your extremities, ready to run and fight.
Right.
It will shut off your higher reasoning functions because you don't need to think, you have to act on instinct. It will actually shut down your immune system because your immune system takes up a lot of energy and you're going to need it. And it does all sorts of other things. but these this sort of chemical release is what we experience, as I said, as an emotion. And it's only meant to be there for an emergency response. So you're supposed to feel this emotion, feel this chemical release, act upon it, and then go back to normal. But in our culture, we essentially hold on to these emotions pretty much in a chronic way. So they start attacking the body because obviously it's an emergency response. So your body isn't designed to feel that emergency all the time. So, for instance, if you're angry, if you're sort of harboring this anger, then the chemical signature will start attacking your liver. If you're feeling grief, I believe it's the lungs. I can't remember, I haven't got the notes with me, but there's a whole set of things if you that happen under certain emotional situations. So essentially, that's a direct example of how your internal state affects your external state.
Right.
But on a more fundamental level, you are a projection of who you think you are. So your body is designed to give you whatever experience you require on this plane, on this earth. So for that to happen, when you desire a particular experience, then your body is going to try and make sure that happens. I'm probably not explaining that very well, but I'll give you an example.
I think you're doing well. I think it's also important to interject here that whether it's a desired experience or not a desired experience, if it is where your focus lies, that is what you're going to create.
Yeah, exactly. I can give you a very sort of stark example of that. I started working with my mum. I got my mum onto some of these therapies, and she started responding really well. She's 72 this year, and one of the things I asked her was, well, what does she want to do with the rest of her life? And she said she'd love to go on adventures. And I said, okay, what do you need to be able to go on these adventures? And she said, well, I need to be really younger and fitter to be climbing these mountains and things. So I said, okay, what you need to do is visualize this younger, fitter version of yourself. What does she look like? What sort of clothes is she wearing? What do you see her doing? And not only see it, but feel it, smell it, taste it.
Exactly.
Just experience that person as fully as you can. And when you've got that image in your mind completely and utterly crystallized, and I said to her, then you be that woman. And she said, well, how do I be that woman? So I said, okay, if you walk into a building, you get faced with the lift and the stairs. What would a young, fit person do? Well, they'd start running up the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So what would an old lady do? Well, they'd go straight for the lift. So every time she chose to go into the lift, elevator for you guys.
Uh-huh.
Every time she chose to go into the elevator, then she was reinforcing the idea that she's an old lady.
That's right.
So her body will go, hey, I notice you're not using your legs so much. I'm going to whittle them down for you since you're not using them. But if she decided to change her programming and take the stairs, then her body would go, hey, I notice you're using your legs a bit more. So I'm going to build them up for you.
Yep.
And so her body would start to conform to the picture that's in her head, because that's what our body does.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, our culture has got us focused on birthdays. Okay.
Yep.
So if I said to you at the age 80, in your head there's a picture of an 80-year-old, and not only a picture, a whole set of things that an 80-year-old can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm sorry to tell you that, but that is what you're going to look like, because that is the picture in your head that your body is going to conform to when you hit that age. And every age you've got a picture and a whole set of criteria that that defines what that age represents. And if you're not fully aware and actively reprogramming that, then it's going to run in the background without you knowing about it.
Right.
Just like the experience most people have when you set off for work in the morning and you get in the car and you start thinking about, well, I've got this holiday coming up, and have I got all my stuff to go? Well, where's my passport? Oh, and you start thinking like that, and before you know it, you're at work and you don't remember the half-hour drive.
Yeah.
Getting there, because you weren't even involved in that. Your subconscious program was running the drive to work program.
Yeah, your autopilot.
Autopilot, yeah. So you couldn't do anything, you couldn't sort of go anywhere else. The autopilot was taking you straight there. And that's the same with aging, yeah? You've been programmed since childhood that you're going to start growing up and you're going to end up looking like a version of your parents usually, or somebody who's influenced you in some way. Mm-hmm. And without you taking control, that program's going to run in the background.
Yes, it is.
But as I said, you can actually step in and reprogram it, just like you can decide to get in your car first thing in the morning, and instead of being elsewhere, be fully present. And instead of driving straight to work, you can decide to stop off at a supermarket and do something else, or even turn around and go back home and not go into work today. You've now taken control and you're not running on autopilot.
Exactly.
So
which is why this whole conversation is intended to help us understand that if our bodies renew themselves every 7 years, then it must be our thoughts and our programming that makes us age and makes us get sick.
That's one aspect. The other aspect of it is toxic accumulation.
Right.
What I was talking about before is I call toxic thought, but there's also the idea that we take on toxins from our food, water, and environment.
Yes, we do.
That literally cause what we call the signs of aging. We can't really escape from them in this society because they're all around us,
Yes, absolutely.
There's fluoride and chlorine and all sorts of things in the water. There's all sorts of things in our food. The air, is full of chemtrails and whatever.
Yeah.
And everything around you in your home, the clothes you're wearing are soaked in chemicals. Mm-hmm. If you lie in bed, you're lying on a pillow that's been soaked in a fire retardant that seeps into you. and literally we get overloaded with these toxins, and our body responds by usually hardening. You know, the arteries and the tissues start to harden, and we lose flexibility, and we start gaining the signs of old age.
Right.
But if you were to literally start detoxing, then the very first thing you'll find is that the signs of aging start to reverse. And I'm kind of living proof of that. I was about 3 years, well, it's nearly 4 years now. 4 years ago, I was I said I was 20 stone, but I looked maybe 55 going to 60. But well, you probably got me at a bad time at 4 o'clock in the morning, but yeah. So for at one point, I've been told I kind of look 32 and maybe 35, 38, something like that. And I've just turned 52. So you know, I'm kind of living proof that you can actually reverse this.
Absolutely.
And my mum, again, is this a good time to show the picture?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to try and show a picture of what my mother is like at the moment, and I'm going to have to do the whole share screen thing. There we go. You tell me if you've got it.
Okay,
So
we've got it. We've got it up.
Okay, so this is my mother. Before she started, she was in a wheelchair. She was suffering with a whole list of things. She had a tabletop full of drugs, and this was about 1.5 to 2 years ago. She started on therapies that I set her on, and essentially this is what she looks like now. Some people have said that she looks like me with a pair of earrings on, but on a kind of another note, we were out with some of her friends, and I'm going to stop this now. We're out with some of her friends, and her friends asked me how old I was. And when she told them, they were shocked, and they said, "Well, I thought that's how old you were." So yeah, so
Yep.
she has started to reverse the signs of aging.
That's beautiful.
And I have other, so many other people. I'm going to show another picture actually while I'm here talking about this subject.
Okay.
I'll show another one, another person that I'm friends with, and I've started helping. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Well, this is Karen, and she basically started. I think it was about 2 years ago as well.
Okay.
Maybe a bit more, and she has gone through a pretty dramatic transformation. I don't know if I assume you can see that. So, and I've seen this happen time and time again. So it's pretty amazing, really.
Well, I'll have to take a look at those in the playback because I'm behind the screen where you're showing it, but I'm getting some feedback from our studio audience here there, and they're all just flabbergasted. So, so
I'm gonna avoid showing the picture of me before because I'm not really happy about it, to be honest.
Okay. So based upon these premises that being present, projecting that which we want to experience in our daily lives, and the detoxification efforts that you speak of and you teach, there's really no reason why our cells could not be immortal, right?
Well, exactly. Our cells are immortal. That was proved back in the 1800s and early 1900s by a chap called Dr. Alexei Carrel. Our cells are immortal. In fact, in the book, I mention the case of a woman called I've forgotten her name now.
We're talking about Henrietta?
Henrietta Lacks, that's it. Yeah, and she died of an aggressive strain of I best believe cervical cancer.
Right.
And they basically started to clone her cells. Basically, they put her cells in culture, and they've been using these cells ever since. For the last 50 odd years, they've been growing her cells, and I think they've produced something in the order of 50 50 metric tons of her cells. So she lives on today.
Yes, she does. And we refer to those cells now as HeLa cells.
Yes. I like to call them HeLa cells, actually, because they end up in all sorts of vaccines. And
yes, they do. And in
yes,
people's cancer tumors and all kinds of crazy places.
Yeah, so I wonder how they managed to end these malignant cancer cells. I wonder how they managed to end up in all these vaccines and
I'm sure it's just accidental. I'm sure they just happened to cross paths in some obscure way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I do like what Dr. Carell was saying, is that he says that the cell is immortal, but it's the fluid around it, the fluid in which it floats, that degenerates, and that's what needs to be renewed and detoxified. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And I guess we all know it. It's the blood is a fluid in which all the cells float, and if your blood's good, then the rest of you is going to be good. Exactly. Essentially. So as long as we help the body to eliminate all the toxicity, and that's what essentially one of the big jobs the blood does. It doesn't just supply oxygen to all your cells. It literally carries away all the waste, all the exhaust from your body. So as long as the body can get rid of all this stuff, then the body is healthy. It actually, as you'll see in the book, that the process of elimination is much more important than this idea of nutrition.
Thank you. Yes, we definitely need to start addressing this, because we've got so much mythology surrounding how to eat, what to eat, why to eat, when to eat, all of that silly nonsense. And your book has just transformed my mind as far as this goes. That the only essential nutrition we need is that which is in our environment, and that inner environment and external environment. So let's start going there.
Right. Well, I started getting an inkling about this when I read the most amazing book that I have ever read. It's called Man's Higher Consciousness by Hilton Hotema. Yeah. It's a book that's been out of print for a long time, but it survived when somebody actually turned it into a PDF. They'd scanned it and turned it into a PDF. And somebody took the PDF and reprinted it from the PDF, which is quite strange, really, because you can see on the artifacts where the PDF wasn't scanned properly, they appear in a book as well. So it's literally a book that was, I assume, suppressed.
I would say so.
But that has now sort of resurfaced. And as I said, it was the most amazing book I've ever read, because it took me 6 months to read, because every time I opened the book and read a paragraph, I had to shut the book again and go away and go, oh, wow. Oh, that means, oh, wow. and yeah, it took me 6 months to literally get through it. And as soon as I read it, I started again and read it through again. I think I've read it about 9 times so far.
Wow. And
as you said, it's one of those books that every time you read it, you find something else that you didn't find before. So that book basically showed me that the body is perfect and doesn't require any external input under ideal conditions, and that includes food. And in fact, food is one of the things that's actually harming us more than anything.
Right.
And I don't mean, nasty GMO foods and, processed foods. I mean all food.
Right.
Everything. Our bodies, aren't really designed to eat food. That does sound very, crazy, I guess. But but our bodies spend most of its time trying to get rid of the food that we put in it.
Exactly.
You know? and recover from its effects, especially this cooked food.
Yes.
This strange habit that we've got of cooking our food.
Fire might have been, the main thing that differentiated our ancestors from that which we are today, but it was certainly misapplied to food. It was never intended to be applied to food.
Yeah. Our bodies react to cooked food as if we've just poisoned ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. Our body creates white blood cells called leukocytes, and literally these leukocytes get produced if there's an infection or we've ingested poison. But as soon as we cooked food, our body produces leukocytes. Yep. But the medical establishment says, well, that we call that digestive leukocytosis, and that's just fine. Don't worry about that. That's fine. So yeah, our bodies produce all these white blood cells to attack the food that we've just eaten. But if you ate the same food raw, our body doesn't react in that way at all.
Imagine.
So in the book Man's Higher Consciousness, Hilton Hotoma basically explains that we've basically we've basically fallen through various steps of decline from this idea of breatharianism, which is requiring no food or water. We fell from that level where we were essentially perfect and not entirely physical beings. We fell down, then we started to drink water. So, we started to take on water, and our body had to kind of adapt to that new habit. And in that adaptation, our vitality kind of declined a bit, and our lifespan declined a bit. So then we started eating the fruit. And again, our body now had to deal with taking on solid matter. Mm-hmm. And I guess we became more and more physical because we started taking on this physical matter.
Makes sense.
And our bodies had to now adjust to expel this physical matter as well. So again, our vitality declined and our lifespans declined. Then we ate the vegetables, and the same thing, where our vitality and longevity declined, all the way to eating meat. And now actually, I don't think our decline stopped there. I think added on to the stages of decline that Hotema knew about, which ended at carnivorism, we've fallen even further with I'd call it what would you call it? Non-foodist, essentially. Or,
chemicalism,
chemicalism and non-food and I don't know, genetically modified non-foods.
Yeah.
I guess our lifespans are shrinking even more as a result of these non-foods. Mm-hmm. I was going to say burnt. I called it burnt omnivore, which is this process
because we
of
cook everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've developed adaptations or adaptive strategies within the body to put up with the nonsense that we've done over time to our bodies. So if we were to utilize them the way they were created to be used, what could you give us the steps perhaps that we should start with in order to start to reverse this process, to get ourselves closer back to breatharianism? I used to joke with people saying that I just didn't find anything about food that was appealing, and that I just wish I could survive on fresh air and mountain scenery. And little did I know that that's probably how Creator intended us to survive. But we've got about 20 minutes, and I'd really like to talk about what we have intrinsically within us that enables us to reverse this aging process and heal ourselves without all of the bangles and the bull crap that we think we have to heal?
Okay, well, the very simplest way of healing our bodies is essentially allowing our bodies to have the energy that it needs to heal.
Right.
Now, one thing I didn't touch on was about food, is that it takes around about 80% of our energy to digest food.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're on 3 meals a day, that means, you're on 20% of your energy all day.
Right.
That's barely enough to keep you walking around, and gives you a hint as to why it takes us a long time to recover from anything, because essentially your body doesn't have the energy to heal itself.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the most powerful things you can do to heal is to stop eating. And if any of you sort of go away from this remembering one thing, it should be that if you start suffering from anything, the very first thing you should do is just stop eating for a few days.
Right.
And you'll find that you'll start to recover very quickly, because now you've liberated the energy that you would have used to digest food, and that energy can be now redirected to healing and repair work.
Right.
So fasting is a really powerful tool, and generally I put people on 2-day-a-week fasts for a week or so, and as their body gets used to that, then I get them to do a whole week-long fast, 1 week-long fast a month.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're suffering from anything sort of particularly serious, I might get them to do a sort of 14 to 30-day fast.
Okay.
As I said, very powerful indeed. The even more powerful therapy, and don't you know if you want me to go on to...
I do. We have to go there.
Okay.
Yep, we have to go
we
there.
have to go there, okay. The most powerful therapy that you can ever do for yourself is known as urine therapy.
Right.
And I bet you can guess what that means. It's the process of drinking your own urine and also washing yourself in it. It's a kind of two-part program. Now, the first thing people say or do when I talk about urine therapy is, well, their face goes, and they go, oh no, oh no, yeah. Well, that is a programmed response.
Yes.
In our culture, this urine therapy has been demonized. Now wash your hands. Got to wash your hands after urinating. Oh. No, what urine actually is your blood. It
Right.
is the plasma part of your blood.
Yep.
So if you got a blood sample and they stood it up in a test tube, the red blood cells would sink to the bottom, and you'd be left with a yellowish liquid, floating above, and that is your urine.
Yep.
So your urine is essentially your blood. It's a way of getting the life-giving blood that's coursing through your veins from the inside to the outside, and it's perfectly sterile as it comes out. All the waste that might be in your blood is removed by your liver,
Mm-hmm.
and then the purified blood from your liver goes to your kidneys, and your kidneys are there to keep your blood in perfect balance. So anything you have an excess of will be shunted away to your bladder. So if you've got too much water in your blood, then the excess water will go to your bladder. And same with vitamin C or whatever vitamins and minerals. Most people know if they have too much vitamin C, they end up weeing it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same for all of the good stuff in your blood. and while it's in your bladder, your body realizes that it's got a store of all this good stuff that it still needs, and sometimes it will reabsorb it. And some people have had the experience of say wanting desperately to go to the toilet, and then getting distracted, and an hour later realizing, oh, I didn't actually need to go.
Yeah.
Well, that's because in the meantime, before you got to the toilet, your body realized, oh, I can use some of that, and reabsorbed it, and now took the pressure off your bladder. So when you drink your urine, not only are you putting back into your body some of the things that your body actually at this point now starts to need, but it now doesn't have to go through the energy expensive overhead of manufacturing it.
Right.
So you save energy that way. Your urine also is packed with all sorts of amazing things. It's antibacterial, antihistamine, antiviral, antibiotic. It's an amazing cocktail of life-giving things. It's also packed solid with stem cells.
Yes.
And most people know what stem cells are. They're cells that literally can become anything in your body. So they roam around your body looking for things to repair. So your urine is packed solid with them. So literally, when you take it in, it's just a life-giving elixir for your body.
You know, there was a picture in the book which just blew my mind of a gentleman who had cut off part of his finger, and there is a product, is it called A-Cell or something like that, that they used from a pig's bladder and applied it to this cut off stump of a finger. And of course it hadn't been intervened with tetanus shots, or they hadn't cauterized it and sewn it up, but this man regenerated his finger through the use of these stem cells from the pig's bladder. So how much more amazing would it be for us to utilize our own template that we produce to regenerate our own limbs and our own tissues and organs? I'll never forget seeing that, because I have a good friend that had an accident and lost a finger, and the atrocities that were done in order for him to recover the use of his hand have just been ridiculous, because time lapsed and all kinds of crazy things happened. And of course they intervened with all the super technology to make sure that it was not going to get infected, and all of the nonsense that they put him through. And son of a gun, he could have collected his own urine and internalized it and rested his hand in it and massaged it in there. And
I actually met a woman at a conference who came up to me and told me her story. She showed me her hand. Her hand looked absolutely normal, but then she showed me a picture of when she cut off her finger down to about here, while she was gardening, and her finger was kind of mashed up and couldn't be sort of rescued. But instead of going to the hospital, she basically got a wee-soaked rag, a urine-soaked rag, wrapped it around, and resisted going to the hospital, even though her family sort of tried to force her to go.
Oh, I'm sure.
So she didn't, and literally her finger grew back. She showed me the picture of what it was like, and she showed me her hand. Her hand was absolutely normal. Now, if she had gone to the hospital, yes, they would have put antibiotics and tetanus shots, and they would have sewed up the stump, so it had no chance of healing and regenerating itself, because that's where we go wrong. We intervene and arrogantly assume that we can do better than our body can.
Exactly.
So if essentially we kind of step aside and let our body do its stuff, it will regenerate itself. Obviously, there is a mental aspect to this as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, if you don't believe that you can regenerate your finger, then, well, you know what? You're not going to regenerate your finger. Again, you're reprogramming your body to do something other than it wants to do.
A lot of times
In,
we just really need to get out of our own way because we have this, like you said, this arrogant impression that our minds are all that we are, and our left hemisphere is the one that's engaged the most often, and it's the one that talks us out of the brilliance that we could
mhm.
allow our body to just do on its own, because we're so busy in analysis paralysis. We just can't get out of our own way.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I show in a book that there was and I can't remember the guy's name. There was a scientist who discovered that around our bodies is even a child's body is an energetic imprint of the fully grown person.
Yes, didn't he do experiments on salamanders, and that's what
On
he discovered?
salamanders, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, fully grown salamander, sort of an energetic imprint around even the unfertilized egg. So essentially, that would explain the phenomenon of phantom limb syndrome,
Right.
because essentially I think we operate our body through this energetic imprint. It's like a blueprint of the body. So it's kind of a template for the body to grow back into.
Absolutely. And isn't that basically the that which nourishes the body into health, or into maturity, or into repair, is this energetic imprint, or this cosmic radiation, or whatever you want to call it, that is so brilliant that the only thing we can really do is muck it up.
Yeah, that's it. Essentially, that is exactly it. Our method of treating so-called illnesses is to essentially give our bodies a pharmaceutical,
Poison.
drug, poison. Yeah, and most of the time, what these poisons do, well, they acutely poison you.
Mm-hmm.
So, say you're suffering from a pain in the wrist. Well, you take a pill, and the body now shifts its attention away from the wrist, which the symptom you're getting, the pain in the wrist, is literally your body saying, okay, I'm working on your wrist at this point. Yeah, I'm working on it. Rest it so I can do my work.
Right.
So when you take the pill, right, your body now has a more acute problem to deal with. So it switches resources away from the wrist to now deal with the poison you've just taken.
Right.
So now you can't feel any pain in your wrist. The symptom is gone. Yay for medical science.
And the doctors will declare you healed, because now the symptom isn't aggravating anymore, but you're putting out the fire of the poison.
Exactly. And now you can't feel the problem in your wrist, and you go about using it as normal, and that problem builds and compounds because your body hasn't dealt with it.
Exactly.
So essentially we do the absolute wrong thing. So what urine does, it basically promotes healing, and it stimulates the body to dump toxins.
Right.
So one of the very first things that happens when you start taking urine is that whatever you're dealing with might tend to get worse suddenly.
Because you're having a Herxheimer or a healing crisis.
They're having a healing crisis. What did you call it?
Herxheimer reaction.
Oh, okay. Never heard of that before, to be honest. So yes, it's literally your body dumping toxins, and what will happen is the toxins will need to come out some way, so they tend to come out through the path of least resistance,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be whatever you're dealing with will start to flare up.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tell people is to just hang on and tough it out. It usually only lasts for 2 to 3 days.
Right.
And once it's gone, you come out of it stronger.
Absolutely.
Now, again, if you take pills or you take herbs or whatever, yes, they might make the symptoms go away, but literally the symptoms are what you need. So the symptoms are your body dealing with the problem.
Sure, they're your feedback system.
Yes, and if you interfere with that, then your body's not healing itself.
And you've disconnected the intrinsic intelligence of this feedback system by confusing the symptoms with the disease, or the symptoms with the injury. In actuality, they're there to give you the information that says, this body is brilliant, this body's intelligent, this body knows what to do, get the heck out of the way.
Mm-hmm. The allopathic method is like the engine warning light coming in on your car, and you take it to a garage and the mechanic takes the bulb out. So the symptom's cured, there's no light anymore, but the problem is still there in the car. So
pesky light,
Yeah.
So Dave, we're running up against the hour, and I just wanted to real quickly mention that all of the water that nature produces is distilled, and that includes our bodies. Our kidneys are our distilling units within this physicality. And so if people could look at their urine as just simply distilled water that has all of the nutriments and all of the hydration that the body needs, it kind of takes that stigma away from it. And you do advocate, when we do drink water, to drink distilled water, and if we're going to do fruits, do the juicy fruits, so that we're getting more of the benefit of nature's distillery.
Yep. I did a 30-day urine fast, where all I consumed in that 30 days was my own urine, and most people imagine that if you do that, then your urine will turn all syrupy and get and so on. But it doesn't work like that. Your blood gets its water from your body, and your body is 90% water.
Exactly.
So you don't run out. And
so Dave, where can they? I'm showing your book right now. Where can they get your book?
Oh, okay. It's available on lulu.com, lulu.com. It's called the Human Body Owner's Workshop Manual. You can also get it at Amazon, but I wouldn't get it at Amazon because, anyway. But lulu.com is the best place to get it.
And your website is what?
My website is allegedlydave.com.
Pretty easy. Fantastic. I'd like to have you back if you're up for that, maybe when you get back from Turkey, and see if we can explore this a little bit more, or perhaps maybe dig into some of the other amazing things that you've researched, because everything is equally as mind-boggling as this is. So I'm challenging people to really reconsider their perceptions of urine therapy, and I'm becoming quite the expert at it, because yesterday everything that came out went back in, so I'm getting there.
Oh, well done.
Yes. Thank you, Dave, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you.
Have a good one, and get some sleep, please.
Thanks a lot. See you later.
Good night.